API-builder, the basics. An API, or Application Programming Interface, is a gate between the back and front end of an app, or between the back end and a third-party system. Firstly, let's look at the principles it works with. Basically, an API method is a URL, an internet address through which we can write and read data to or from our database. We make a request and get a response from the API. Web pages, mobile apps, or any other IT system can use that same request and response process. There are two options for setting up API methods on the Directual platform: webhooks and API endpoints. The simplest way to write data into the Directual Cloud database is to use webhooks. Many different services provide users with an integration method like that. For instance, Typeform, Webflow, or Tilda. To create a webhook URL, we go to the API tab, select Webhooks, and click the New button. The data structure for it is created automatically in the Integrations folder. Often the data object comes in JSON format. To handle it, we'll use Directual scenarios. Through these steps, you can pass any JSON data to the relevant objects and fields, and then work with them in the normal way. A flexible technique for setting up API is called Endpoints. It supports GET and POST requests to read and write data. We can also configure user-based security, filtering, validation, and other parameters. Here's a structure for a typical GET or POST request. This section is the request path. This is the request name. And these are the parameters of the request. Let's set up an API endpoint on Directual. Firstly, we choose the data structure we want to work with. As an example, let's say it's a structure containing information about books. Fill in the name of the request and a description, which helps teams to manage a high number of endpoints. Then we set up the security layer. First, we choose the fields that will be available for requesting. A GET request reads the data, and a POST request writes the data. The linked objects can also be included in the API response as well, like this. The security layer has a section with conditions for a user's session. It defines the user-based security rules. While composing a condition, we pick one of the object fields from the app users structure. That's the data structure where all your registered app users are stored. Then, fill in the value for comparison. We can choose any relationship between them. They can be equal, or either one more or less than the other. One layer might contain several conditions, united by the logical AND or the logical OR. The default rule, ID is not null, prohibits access by non-authorized users. Remove this condition if you want your data to be open to the public. The next section is filtering. Here we can configure conditions, similar to the ones we just considered, but there is one significant difference. We compose the conditions on the objects from our target structure, not from app users. In our book-related example, we can filter all the books issued before 1950. One very useful tool for checking the API endpoint that we're configuring is called Respond Preview. The button for it is at the top. Here, we can see the request. This parameter, the app ID, is also called the API key. This is a unique key to your application, and we can see the response in JSON format. Right here we can choose an app user from its ID, or create a new one. This allows us to see the respond when there are specific user-based security rules. Note that a new request parameter just appeared, User Session ID. Okay, let's keep going. There's one more basic tuning method for GET requests: sorting. We can choose the field for object sorting in the respond and sorting directions. If we add more than one parameter, they will be applied one by one. Post request will create or update objects. It holds onto the data in JSON format, like this. Remember, any fields that we send should be added in the security layer. Otherwise, we'll get an exception response. These are the basics of the Directual API Builder. In the next video, we'll look at some more advanced techniques.